keeping Robert Redford in consideration. Top 10. Robert Redford's moments that demonstrate his status as one of the final great film stars. What a lasting impression he makes. We are saying farewell to a cinematic legend today. The late Robert Redford, who was 89 years old when he died on September 16, 2025, was more than just a famous actor. He embodied the golden age of Hollywood while also being an activist for the environment and a staunch supporter of independent film. We remember him with sadness, but also with joy for the extraordinary life he led according to his own terms. Redford was a crusader in an industry known for bending over backwards, and his influence permeates American cinema in ways that go well beyond his films. When filmmaker Steven Soderbergh heard the news of Redford's death, he mused on the difference between stars and luminaries. Robert Redford brought light to the entire filmmaking world, not just the screen. He showed us that being true to ourselves as artists and being successful financially are not incompatible goals. Because he kept so much of himself hidden during his remarkable career, Redford's death was all the more tragic. Redford kept a dignified reserve that enhanced the significance of his rare candor moments, in contrast to modern superstars who divulge every aspect of their existence. He grasped a basic aspect of stardom that is mostly overlooked in modern times, as pointed out by film historian Leonard Moulton. Mystique is powerful. Because Redford recognized that less was more, he deliberately withheld less information. You could never really get to the bottom of things because there was always something hidden. For more than 60 years, that was the main attraction. These 10 watershed moments highlight not just his meteoric rise to fame, but also his unique place in American cultural history as we reflect on his incredible life story from TV actor to Hollywood icon to independent film champion. An individual who did not seek popularity for its own sake, but rather utilized it to build something more lasting than mere renown. Here are 10 highlights from Robert Redford's remarkable life and career that we share in his memory. Images that record not just his creative accomplishments, but also the values that led him on his extraordinary path. The iconic moments that made a legend. We have Chup. Break away from me. What gives? Fight them if I have to. We will be killed by them. Will you die for me, darling? Is that so? In 1969's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, the cliff jump was number 10. It was this sequence that catapulted him to stardom. Butch and Sundance are cornered by their persistent pursuit and stand on the brink of a precipice, hundreds of feet below them, beside a roaring river. Butch proposes jumping, and Sundance hesitates before finally revealing, deadpan style, "I can't swim." At this point, Butch bursts out laughing. The line, "Are you crazy? The fall will probably kill you," this moment, effectively captured Redford's uniqueness among other great men of his time. Redford, in contrast to those around him, knew the value of playing it cool, making a powerful statement with a nuanced look or precisely placed pause. Before his own 2002 death, director George Roy Hill highlighted Bob's acting strength in that scene. He had faith in the audience's wit and wisdom. His lack of concern for overtly conveying his feelings was evident. Leaning in, engaging, and meeting him halfway were his invitations to the audience. The iconic chemistry between Newman and Redford, which would propel the picture to cultural icon status, was further established in the cliff leap scene. They would go on to become one of the longest-lasting friendships in Hollywood, which would be evident in The Sting. When asked about their shared approach to fame, "Paul and I hit it off," Redford said in an interview. "We were both aware that it was precious and should not be wasted." This legendary scene becomes even more poignant now that both Newman and Redford are no longer with us. An evocation of a bygone era of American cinema when leading men and actresses exuded both poise and seriousness. On the 9th spot, from 1981 to 1985, he helped found the Sundance Institute and Film Festival. The establishment of the Sundance Institute and Film Festival by Redford is arguably the best example of his influence outside of film. Redford, at the height of his commercial power, looked to the future of the medium he loved rather than fixating on their next blockbuster like most stars do. Hollywood was changing in the early 1980s, Redford explained after the fact. Studios were becoming increasingly corporate, increasingly risk-averse. I could see independent voices being squeezed out of the conversation. Someone needed to create space for those voices. Over time, the modest Utah/US Film Festival transformed into the Sundance Film Festival under Redford's leadership, becoming the most influential independent film showcase globally and launching the careers of directors who would transform American cinema. Ryan Coogler, Ava DuVernay, Darren Aronofsky, Steven Soderbergh, Steven Tarantino, and the Coen brothers. There is a veritable who's who of contemporary cinema's most original voices on the roster of directors who found success at Sundance. According to Roger Ebert, a film critic who was close to Redford before his death in 2013, the revolutionary aspect of Sundance was the way he utilized his star power to help others rather than for his own benefit. What matters most is not what you make personally, but rather what you pave the way for others to create. This is something he grasped. Tributes from Sundance alums began pouring in as word of Redford's death spread today, with many praising him for having given them the confidence to pursue professions that would not have been possible without him. While we climbed, he steadied the ladder he had constructed. Ava DuVernay wrote the screenplay. He altered the process of storytelling as well as the stories themselves. Redford was no longer actively involved in Sundance in his later years, but he continued to serve as its spiritual guide. The institution he established guarantees that his vision will impact cinema for years to come, even though his passing signifies the end of an era. Your daughter is beautiful, Hubble. When you come, why don't you grab a drink and take her out? No way. The Way We Were comes in at number 8. In 1973, I took chemistry with Barbara Streisand. There were many who foresaw tragedy when Sidney Pollack paired Redford with Barbara Streisand in The Way We Were. Streisand was renowned for her intense feelings. Their acting techniques appeared to be fundamentally at odds with Redford's career-defining modesty. It was because of this disparity, not in spite of it, that one of the most tragic love tales in cinema came to light. The dynamic between Streisand and Redford, who played the politically engaged Katie Morosky and the emotionally reserved Hubble Gardner, was heartbreakingly realistic because it depicted a couple who loved each other very much, yet were completely different. Nearly half a century after its release, the heartbreaking last scene, in which Katie bids farewell to Hubble by delicately brushing his hair from his forehead, remains a tearjerker for viewers. When Starrison heard the news of Redford's demise today, she shared a heartfelt tribute. Sure, some film pairings are based solely on chemistry. Our experience together was like alchemy. It changed us in profound ways. He helped me develop as an actor by providing me with a genuine obstacle to overcome. For the times we spent together, I will be eternally thankful. This interaction highlighted Redford's kindness as a scene partner, which is one of his underrated acting skills. Redford knew that if he stayed out of the limelight, his performance would suffer, in contrast to many leading males, unduly diminished by letting his co-star steal the show. When we look back at The Way We Were after Redford's death, what stands out most isn't the chemistry between the leads, but how their relationship captures something timeless about human connection. Bob never approached a scene thinking, "How can I stand out here?" As Sidney Pollack once explained, he always thought about the relationship between the characters, the truth of the moment. That's much rarer than you might think, especially among stars of his magnitude. It's possible to have profound feelings for another person and still fail to overcome basic differences. It's a sour reminder that the best and worst things in life happen at the same time. His last scene in 2018's The Old Man and the Gun has music from number 7. Playing the role of actual gentleman bank robber Forrest Tucker, Redford claimed at the age of 82 that The Old Man and the Gun would be his last performance. In a part that drew on his magnetic personality, mischievous streak, and the enduring radiance of his signature blue eyes, he bid audiences a proper goodbye. The ideal cinematic farewell was captured in the film's closing shot, which featured Redford smiling as he strolls down a jail corridor for the final time. On screen, his death was hardly tragic. He departed gracefully, blending into lore with the same subtlety that characterized his entire career. As Redford remarked following the film's release, he wished his final role had been more authentic. When it came to living his life, Forrest Tucker did things his way. Like you, I've attempted this. The fact that this last performance hinted at Redford's own departure, one that was understated, dignified, and done on his own terms, makes it all the more moving in hindsight. Even in his twilight years, Redford continued to make art that meant something to him. Much like his character couldn't stop robbing banks because it provided him joy. As soon as word got out about Redford's death, director David Lowery commented, "Working with Bob on his final film was like being given temporary custody of a national treasure." What really stood out to me was how detached he was from the experience. Neither the past nor his legacy will be the subject of any sweeping statements. Doing good work and telling good stories was all he wanted to do before moving on to the next thing. Throughout his career, Redford exhibited such forward-thinking outlook. Not even in his last moments on screen did he turn around. Optimism, curiosity, and forward motion remained his guiding principles. It would appear that John Mitchell has resigned as head of Creek, citing a desire to spend more time with his family as his reason. We don't quite believe, that sounds like. Number 6. Taking a professional gamble to star in 1970 SIX's All the President's Men. Prior to its subsequent renown as one of the finest films of all time, All the President's Men was a high-stakes, possibly career-ending production that Redford personally acquired the rights to. The book, written by Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, detailed the investigation into the Watergate scandal, which was still unfolding when filming began. Redford started working on the picture while Richard Nixon was still president, but that fact is commonly overlooked. It wasn't merely a creative risk. It had political overtones and pitted him against influential figures in American society. Before his death in 1998, the film's director, Alan J. Pakula, noted that Bob knew what was at risk. The powerful didn't want their stories told, but he was using his celebrity status to do just that. Even though he was aware that there could be actual repercussions, he was adamant that the story had to be filmed. A new standard for American cinematic heroism was set by Redford's performance as Bob Woodward, a reporter for The Washington Post. One that doesn't rely on strength of body, but on the ability to think critically, act courageously, and relentlessly pursue truth no matter the cost. The influence of the picture extended much beyond its financial success. Its themes, which include the crucial role of a free press in preserving democratic institutions and the fact that it encouraged a new generation of journalists, are as pertinent now as they were then. Additionally, All the President's Men exemplified something that is becoming more uncommon in modern Hollywood: a commercially successful, mainstream picture that tackled complicated political issues head-on, without reducing them to simplistic tales of good guys and bad guys. Journalism was among the first professions to mourn Redford's death, as word of his demise circulated today. The role he played, Woodward, was an influence on many, who went on to successful careers in their own right. An individual who won the Pulitzer Prize remarked that he demonstrated how truth-telling can be just as exciting as a high-speed chase. He made what is essentially a tedious process appear like an exciting adventure. The dedication of Redford to this tale is particularly pertinent in this age of disputed facts and assaults on journalism. It serves as a reminder of the ability of cinema to shed light on truth and make powerful people answer for their actions. Tip number 5. Staying away from the Hollywood business. Deliberately shunning the Hollywood system, Redford turned down numerous blockbuster possibilities, avoided the celebrity circuit, and refused to play the PR game that major stars are expected to undertake during his 6-decade career. This was more than just a matter of taste. It was an ideological position on the proper and improper requirements for fame. Redford valued creative autonomy, solitude, and opportunities to work on projects that reflected his beliefs, in contrast to his colleagues who were more concerned with accumulating fame and fortune. The longtime representative of Bob stated in a statement today that Bob famously declined massive paychecks for films such as Superman, The Graduate, and even The Godfather. For him, it had nothing to do with the cash. Whether he felt a connection to the character or the project's message was paramount at all times. A hefty price tag was attached to this selected strategy. Some have speculated that Redford lost out on hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue opportunities due to his moral decisions. Despite this, his filmography has stood the test of time because he was so selective, avoiding the kind of forgettable commercial projects that can derail even the most successful actors' careers. As a whole, Redford was against the staged nature of celebrity that has grown commonplace in modern times. He kept his public and private life completely separate, rarely giving interviews and avoiding talk shows. He knew the value of self-control in a field where exposure was paramount. "Celebrity is what people give you," Redford once explained during an unusually off-kilter moment. "Stardom is what you give back to them." Personally, I've always been more intrigued by the reverse than the first. In this day of relentless self-promotion and excessive social media sharing, this idea appears nearly radical. In the wake of his passing, many have paid tribute to Redford, remarking on how his attitude to fame seems to be a dying art form and a poignant reminder that genuine success isn't about how many people see you, but how big of an effect you have. Martin Scorsese remarked upon hearing of Redford's death that he never equated fame with significance. Because of this unique quality, his art carries more than just passing fads. 100 years from now, people will still watch his films because he made them with honesty and not with calculations. Fourth, Ordinary People, 1980, his first feature film directorial effort. Many in Hollywood viewed Redford's announcement that he was going to direct as just another actor's vanity project. On the contrary, Redford's first foray into filmmaking, Ordinary People, was a tragic family drama that went on to win 4 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. The The fact that Redford picked subjects that seemed to contradict his golden boy persona just added to the accomplishment's awe-inspiring nature. A brutal examination of the aftermath of a teen son's untimely death, grief, blame, and the dissolution of the family unit occurs in ordinary people. Just broken people trying to find common ground in the face of insurmountable suffering. No heroes, no villains. Redford said, "I wasn't interested in making something flashy. This was years after the fact. My goal in writing this piece was to convey the power of unspoken feelings and how they may erode a family unit from the inside out." Mary Tyler Moore, Donald Sutherland, Timothy Hutton, and Judd Hirsch were all part of the outstanding ensemble cast that contributed to the film's impact. Redford's mastery of acting in front of and behind the camera is on full display in the honest, open performances he coaxed from actors recognized for very different parts. Mary Tyler Moore noted just before Bob's death in 2017 that Bob made it possible for people to be honest, even when it hurt. His actions were guided by a combination of intelligence, empathy, and nuance. Redford was seen by the general public as one of the most elusive Hollywood stars, a famous actor who went on to become a very successful filmmaker. The rest of his career as a filmmaker, which included films like Quiz Show, The Horse Whisperer, and A River Runs Through It, proved that this was no accident. Many directors, especially those who have followed in Redford's footsteps, have praised his directing style and his ability to convey nuanced themes without resorting to sentimentality or manipulation in the wake of his death. According to filmmaker Kenneth Tarrant, he proved that moderation is often more effective than excess. All of my efforts in my own work have been guided by that lesson. Because I suspected that deep down you were curious, I informed you. Down under. Thirdly, his illustrious collaboration with Paul Newman. There are movie partnerships that go beyond mere chemistry and end up becoming cultural icons. Fred and Ginger, Bogart and Beale, Tracy and Hepburn, and of course, Newman and Redford, who formed one of the most adored film duos of all time with their work together in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Sting. Their on-screen enchantment was derived from an exquisite equilibrium of contrasts. A real off-screen friendship that continued until Newman's death in 2008 increased the dynamic between Redford's cooler reserve and Newman's more extroverted enthusiasm. There was an instant connection between Paul and I. In an interview, Redford stated, "We had different approaches to acting, different personalities really, but we shared values about what mattered both in work and in life." One of their shared values was a determination to use their popularity for causes other than self-promoting. The charitable legacies that both men left behind were substantial. While Redford was an activist for the environment and a supporter of independent films, Newman ran a food firm that gave away all of its revenues to charity. They produced some of their best work as a result of their friendly competition. They were officially Hollywood's golden couple after The Sting took home 7 Oscars, including Best Picture. Studios spent decades trying to recreate their groundbreaking dynamic by pairing other male stars, but they hardly achieved the same level of success. Audiences adored their chemistry. Before he passed away, director George Roy Hill remarked that the uniqueness of Bob and Paul was due to more than simply their particular brilliance. Their mutual improvement was the key. They boosted one another's performance. People tend to underestimate how rare that is. Now that Redford has passed away, the iconic cooperation between the two of them has come to an end, closing a chapter in Hollywood history. What will stand out to admirers who revisit their collaborations in the coming days is how effortlessly cool and charismatic they are, regardless of the fads or trends in fashion or cinematography. The foundation of some things is eternal, thus they remain relevant throughout time. Following Newman's passing, Redford pondered, "On television, I felt like our friendship shone through. Friendship, meanwhile, is timeless." Second, that legendary style from 1974's The Great Gatsby. Filmmakers have had a tough time bringing from literature to life, uncovering the mysteries of J. Gatsby. However, many consider Redford's performance in the 1974 film to be the definitive representation of the character. Fitzgerald said that the character had a smile that exuded perpetual confidence, and Redford appeared to physically embody that description. Not only did Redford personify Gatsby in that pink suit, but he also personified a specific, lovely, but haunting American ideal. His golden hair glistened in the light, and the image was unforgettable. The performer and the role were made for each other, and they brought out the other's legendary traits. Matthew J. Brookley, a literary professor who passed away in 2008, remarked that Redford grasped Gatsby's central dualism. The public character with deeply private aspirations, the romantic idealist involved in illicit activities, the self-made man from a dysfunctional family, and so forth. These inconsistencies spoke to Redford's star ego, so he could inhabit them without giving an explanation. Critics were divided on the picture as a whole, but they were almost unanimous in their praise of Redford's performance as Great Gatsby, highlighting his ability to portray the character's dual nature, surface charm, and deeper sadness, even when the script didn't call for it. In his original assessment, Roger Ebert stated that Gatsby calls for an actor who can convince the audience of both his public persona and the hidden yearnings beneath it. This unachievable duality is pulled off by Redford. Throughout his career, Redford's approach to stardom was typified by this quality, the sense of depths beneath the surface. He retained an essential air of mystery, much like Gatsby, by revealing only the information he chose to give, which ensured that viewers would return for decades to come. Many Great Gatsby fans are taking to social media to commemorate Redford today by sharing pictures from the film. This is proof of how convincingly he played this legendary American role. The rosy suit, the longing eyes fixed on the verdant light, and the mysterious smile that hinted at everything but offered nothing in return. Such scenes have become cultural touchstones as well as cinematic landmarks. Leonard Maltin, a film historian, made the observation that some parts become synonymous with the performers who portrayed them. You can't read Fitzgerald's novel nowadays without picturing Redford. Not only that, he played Gatsby. He embodied Gatsby for countless viewers and readers. First and foremost, embracing the lifestyle of an anti-star. Maybe Robert Redford's personal choices were more groundbreaking than any performance or picture he had previously worked on. Choosing a life away from the allure of Hollywood and toward a more practical pursuit of happiness through meaningful employment, connection to nature, and family. Redford, unlike most celebrities of his ilk, didn't buy a mansion in Beverly Hills in 1969. Instead, he bought some property in Utah's Provo Canyon and turned it into Sundance Mountain Resort. It was more than a holiday property. It was a choice in life. His priorities and values are outlined in this declaration. Redford remarked years later that he needed a space to breathe and be reminded of what really important. The Hollywood bubble might cloud your judgment. Having a genuine connection was important to me. There were far-reaching consequences to his choice to live outside the hub of the industry. It gave Redford the space he needed to keep his ego in check, pursue interests outside of acting, and pick projects for their intrinsic value rather than the influence of industry insiders. One facet of his legacy that stands out is his work for the environment. Redford used his celebrity to promote sustainable development, renewable energy, and wilderness preservation decades before climate change became a popular issue. He supported conservation initiatives financially, spoke up on environmental issues in Congress, and made documentaries about the subject. Previously, he has explained that the environment is more than just another cause for him. It's all about the legacy we want to leave behind for future generations. Do not confuse that with politics. That's the duty. Today, tributes have been pouring in from fellow actors, directors, and industry heavyweights. Many have spoken about how Redford's life choices impacted their own, in addition to his artistic achievements. According to one younger celebrity, he demonstrated that there was another way to succeed in the industry, one that allowed one to have their privacy and integrity intact while doing meaningful work. As he neared the end of his life, Redford became even more reclusive, devoting more time to his family, his environmental activism, and the rare works of art that moved him. He remained an environmental activist right up until the end, making his final big public speech a few months ago in support of measures to increase protection for Utah's public lands. The idea of being remembered solely for being famous has never intrigued Redford. He stated in one of his last interviews, "I would be honored if my efforts to promote independent voices, improve the environment, and make a positive impact on movies were the only things that people remembered me for. The remainder is merely background noise." As we bid farewell to Robert Redford today, something much more precious than his remarkable talent or legendary good looks stands out. A life dedicated to ideas that are greater than fame, lived with honesty and integrity. Even though he worked in a field where compromise is common, Redford never ceased asking himself, what truly matters? The answer he gave, as shown in his films and personal decisions, will be an inspiration long after the news of the day has passed. Beyond the realm of television, there exists a lasting impression. In the aftermath of Robert Redford's death, we can look back on his remarkable life and career and see that his impact went much beyond his acting roles, his directing work, and the Sundance Institute he founded. In our celebrity-obsessed society, Redford stood for something that is becoming more and more rare. A well-known figure who approached their celebrity with grace, thoughtfulness, and purpose. Being famous wasn't an end in itself, but a stepping stone to making a difference, and he saw this. According to something Redford said once, there are two ways to deal with famous people. Either you can ingest it, or it can ingest you. For the things that truly count, put it to use. Throughout his extraordinary journey, this ideology guided him. His stances on environmental advocacy, careful role casting, supporting indie film, and staying away from Hollywood's PR machine are all noteworthy. We live in a time when influencers, reality stars, and fake celebrities are king. The death of Redford signifies the conclusion of a period. A bygone era when cinema stars exuded gravitas and intrigue, when stardom was a byproduct of hard effort rather than an aim in itself. Before his own 2008 death, director Sidney Pollack noted that Bob was the final of his kind of star. What you withhold is just as crucial as what you reveal, and he grasped this. He was well aware of the need of withholding information in order to pique people's attention and leave them wanting more. Not only will future generations find Redford's work replete with outstanding performances, but it will also serve as a guide for how to gracefully and purposefully approach celebrity. How to stay authentic in a field that actively seeks to mold people's identities to fit consumer preferences. During one of his final public appearances, Redford addressed a group of young filmmakers at Sundance and stated that the essential question isn't about success or failure. The key is to be genuine. Is your authenticity shining through? From it, everything of value flows. We are losing more than just a great actor and director when we bid farewell to Robert Redford today. There was a time when a movie star could use their platform to transform the industry that created them. We're losing touch with that time because it was when popularity was achieved via craft rather than calculation. Yes, his films will stand the test of time. Sundance will keep supporting original content creators. Something intangible, nevertheless, may be Redford's most significant legacy. Despite working in a field based on deception, one can nevertheless lead a life and do their job with honesty and integrity. That might be the most uplifting message ever, as his incredible life is encapsulated in the credits.